Are we live? Here we are. Here. I can see Sam Wilson is on, and I can see Brett is here. And we're just waiting on a few additional panelists to join us. We have Jim. I see you on. Okay. And boy, we might have. Oh, we got Nick. We're waiting for one more person. Hey, Jim. I can't hear you, Jim. I can't.
Yeah.
There we go.
Oh,
You okay?
Nope.
Yeah.
now I heard you.
Yeah.
Sing something. There we go. Yeah, I'm glad I got two guys that look a lot alike on this panel.
Yeah. One with a hat, one without.
I just got to grow that beard out. That's like 3 stages of beard. Okay, we probably got attendees on here, and this is not professional. What we're going to do, we're going to get started. I've got kind of an introduction thing, and I'll introduce all the panelists. We can, and then after I introduce the panelists, we'll jump into the questions. So I need to open the chat screen. Hey, yeah, okay, cool. I'm not distracted by seeing everybody on the chat line. So this slide here is kind of giving everyone an overview and a summary of what we hope to accomplish with this presentation. We are there's going to be 4 people on the panel. We have Nick and we're still waiting for Nick to join. Okay. And after this summary, we will, I'd like to first jump in and start the presentation. And I apologize, guys. I'm not gonna be so distracted, and I'm gonna get focused, and it's gonna be an amazing presentation. So, can you guys hear me? Okay.
Can you hear us?
Okay, I think I'm in.
I can. Hey, I can hear you.
We're live.
All right.
Thank you much.
Welcome, Nick. Okay, here we go, guys. This is the future. We're going to do this. Let me see if I can do something simple like advancing the slides. Oh, you know what? That's what I'm doing. I'm pushing the wrong button. Sounds so easy. There it is. Okay. Before I introduce myself, guys, I want to first thank the crew at vBrewCon. We were contacted 3 weeks ago with this crazy idea that they were going to put on a virtual brewers conference and asked if we would support and do some webinars like this. And we got some demos coming. We're going to be walking people through our facilities. And anyway, at the time, I didn't know how we were going to find any resources to help. I am so glad that we did. This has been a great exercise for a lot of us on this team to put together this. I want to thank you guys all on the panel for taking up your time. I know that none of your jobs got easier over the past 3 weeks, and I am especially thankful for those that are taking 45 minutes to an hour out of your day today to listen to this. And I hope this is a worthwhile thing. So the vBrewCon team, you guys are fantastic. They're rock stars. They're not trade show people, but they're business people. And man, my hat's off to you. Secondly, I want to thank my team. I think we figured we're running operations now from 15 different facilities. I'm in my home office here in Tacoma. Man, I miss my team. I miss wherever they are, but thankfully, I mean, this format here is unfortunately a little too familiar. It's a lot more familiar to me today as it is probably with all the panelists than it was even a short time ago. So anyway, hello to all my team. I see a few of them coming in. So I hope that they are being effective remote. That's been our mantra is just, hey, let's just figure out how to remain effective. And I think we've done a good job. So anyway, hey, Heather, I see you there. Okay. So now a little bit about me. My dad and I started Pro Refrigeration. We build chiller systems. We started it 30 years ago in October, and our focus was cooling milk. My family kind of has a history in the dairy business, in the particularly in cooling milk with my grandfather and my dad, and that was our first focus. Shortly after we started our business, we became approached by the craft beer industry, a few people in this new market, and I'm really proud to say that 30 years later, those two industries are still the driving industries for our company, and they're both 1 and 2 also in our for our market segment. So, but in addition to those, we're also very passionate. We love to design and develop new equipment. So even though that's our kind of our bread and butter, there's nothing more exciting to us than the development. I'm kind of a techno person, I think, or not really. I'm kind of a everyman techno person, you could call me. I love the new technology. I don't like to go super deep on it. I've got great people on my team that go really deep, but I do like to push the envelope on technology. So this is a great subject that I'm excited to talk about. Personally, my wife and I are based here. She's actually, her office is right across the hall in our home right now, but she is our HR manager, so we're working remotely. Normally, we would be spending a lot of time at our facility in North Carolina, which we miss very much. We hope some of you guys are tuned in here, and we are, but we're getting by. Sorry, I'm using this kind of as a reunion message, but it kind of brought that up. So anyway, let me introduce you to the panel. So that's it. Oh, and I like to hang out with my granddaughter, and she's kind of pretty much rules the roost when she's around me. So that's my best hobby. So let me push the wrong button again. So my first panelist is Mr. Nick Gislason. First of all, we need to recognize Nick as the only panelist, including myself, that actually provided a biography. But this is a great summary. And if you have the opportunity to read it, I'm going to summarize it, Nick. But not only a great biography, that headshot too is awesome too, Nick. I think I'm going to make that into a poster. That's a great shot. It captures you.
They're doing pretty good.
Well.
Thanks,
How
Jim.
are you, Nick? Great. Nick was raised in the beautiful San Juan Islands. I'm going to try to paraphrase it with respect here, where he learned at an early age to build explosives from a guy who just happened to be a master of pyrotechnics that I think lived on the next island over. Right, Nick? It's a fascinating and it's a great story. And I think today still, I mean, that's when you were probably before you were a teenager, wasn't it? Or you were very young. And even today you lead that the San Juan or the Lopez Island fireworks is still one of the largest firework displays.
It is the Lopez
on the West
Community
Coast,
fireworks.
isn't it? Yeah, cool. Anyway, Nick's career in wine started like most of you in the craft beer world in a cellar. He's earned numerous degrees and diplomas that range from chemistry to brewery engineering, with a Master of Science degree in enology and viticulture from UC Davis. Winemaking has taken Nick across the globe, from New Zealand to Napa Valley, where today he oversees all aspects of winemaking and viticulture at the Screaming Eagle Winery. Nick and I have been great. I've had some great exchanges. We've been great friends too, but we've had some great exchanges on technology, system design strategy, and how technology is best applied. Kind of some arguments, some conversations, but we've talked strategy, and probably the main reason Nick is on this panel is we've always been able to find good compromises. Nick is, and I'm just excited for what you can contribute to this discussion and kind of hear more about your path. And anyway,
Thanks
I appreciate
for having
you
me,
being
Jim.
on the panel, Nick. Thanks. Next on the panel is Mr. Weatherwax, Jim Weatherwax, and I can't say you're my oldest customer because you're my age, but I think you've been one of my customers for one of the longest periods of time. We go back even to Odell Brewing before you joined the Canarchy team. Always been one thing I've appreciated about working with Nick is you've always been on the edge of adventurous, but you've always made sure that you were covered. You weren't afraid to try new things, but you made us do our homework, and I've appreciated that. Are you in Longmont today, Jim? Cool. one thing I got to confess, when I invited you to be on this panel, I kind of thought you would have a little love for me because we just resolved that service issue in Brevard. It was only after Jim agreed to be on my panel that I found out not only was the problem not resolved, it had actually been escalated, and Jim had actually been brought into meetings. So anyway, I am glad. I think we are. The good news is we are solid in Brevard as of this point right now. But I didn't bring you in. I thought I had some. I had built up a little collateral, but so be nice on me a little bit. So if you could. Oh, your mic cut out. Can you guys hear him? Okay. Oh, your mic cut out again, Jim. There it is. So welcome, Jim. I think we can hear you now. And I do want to talk. So, Jim, by my calculations, you essentially oversee 7 different breweries, the safety and maintenance teams and CapEx budgets. And I look forward to hearing how you use technology to manage that. Okay, the next guest, well, I'm glad you're here. The next guest that I want to introduce you to is Brett Cokie.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, Brett.
Hey, Brett.
Good afternoon.
I've told this.
Oh, now, Jim, you may have cut out on audio. Let me see here. Can everyone hear me okay?
I can hear you, Brett. This is Sam. Can you hear me?
I think we're back. Yeah. No, Jim, I'll tell you what, in my years at AWS and in the industry, that flight that you and I took. Oh, there you go. That flight you and I took on Alaska Airlines from Seattle, North Carolina. Wow, it was just one of those pinnacle moments in my career when you had an opportunity to sit next to someone next to yourself that, as we talked about IoT and specifically into industrial IoT, Jim, you just got it. And I think collectively we've done some very interesting things. And I can tell you now that I'm no longer at Amazon Web Services, I'm at Slalom. And I tell you, the folks at AWS really appreciate the everything you've done and the insight and everything you've done around connecting and IoT enabling your chillers around the world.
Well, it's definitely been a joint collaboration. It was a good it was an eye-opening experience. I like sharing it. The explanation you gave with how companies were incorporating the IoT, tying it in with their service technicians and doing all this. It just blew my mind. I can remember coming off that airplane and just it was like sitting down with my team the next morning explaining I come to this big conclusion. What I found out is we had already gone a long way down the road, but man, it sure got us on the right track, and it's fun looking back at how far we've come.
It's fun to look back on that. With the COVID thing, I do miss those Alaska flights. I haven't been on an Alaska in probably 6 months. So it's good to reconnect and pleasure to be here talking with all of you.
Yes, thank you very much. And as Brett said, Brett was sales directors for AWS's IoT team, global team, and now he's sales director for Sloan. So anyway, I really appreciate you coming on. I also wanted to mention that, Brett, you have actually attended the Craft Brewers Conference, so you're not a rookie to this crowd. You were in Nashville, launched our Gen 1 dashboard, so that's cool.
I've attended IT conferences all over the world. That Brewers Conference in Nashville is my favorite conference I've ever attended. So no, it was great, a lot of fun.
And for those wondering why we don't have Nick up on the video camera, apparently you don't need the strong Wi-Fi signal to make some great wine, because we had serious technical difficulties. So that's why Nick and I will both be just audio for the remainder of the presentation.
Sounds good.
Okay. Last but not least is my good friend Sam Wilson. Sam was kind of a last-minute panelist, and I like Sam a lot. We've worked on some great projects together, and and I just appreciate him being on here. Sam started his career. I mean, you started as a tradesman, weren't you? You were carrying tools in the early days, right, Sam? Supermarket.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
For a long
and then
time, man.
owning several businesses in the refrigeration sector, from a general contractor, to a manufacturer, to building supermarket equipment. His latest business venture that he's involved with his sons is called CryoBuilt, and pretty much any NBA team or major league or any national sports team and college program utilizes your technology in the CryoBuilt chambers for the muscle recovery. How cold do those chambers get, Sam?
So most of them, it depends on the chamber, minus 150 to minus 200 Fahrenheit, depending on the chamber that
Crazy.
they order. But yeah, that's the you're not in there very long, but it's.
Do you have one of those in your house?
Hit. Do not. We got one here in the. We have usually one or two of them running here in the shop, so get a chance to use them here.
I can't even imagine. Anyway, and one of the reasons Sam is here is, you talk about technology and applying it towards refrigeration. The places that Sam goes and the temperatures that he goes, you just couldn't do it without the aid of technology. You couldn't react quick enough. You couldn't control, probably rely. I mean, you could do it, but it's definitely increased your capabilities by the application of it. And that's why you have a whole team that's pretty much devoted to developing just the technology so you can build your systems.
Yeah, we're always working on new projects. We have a couple of systems in R&D right now. We're doing trying to venture outside of cryotherapy a little bit. We're doing some actual anesthesia recovery for hospitals is kind of our newest equipment line, and basically today anesthesia gets one in, one out. Now we're actually condensing the anesthesia and recovering it, and it has to do with the GWP and the EPA and all that, as well as being able to recover the product. So, but yeah, so we're always working on something new, and then trying to figure a way to support it once it leaves here.
That's one of the questions I think actually on the next slide I talk about is, I don't know if there's an industry out there like the refrigeration industry that works so hard to obsolete technology, but it seems like that's our whole life is we never get the chance to really perfect what we're currently working on. They're always forcing us to look at tomorrow. But thanks for being on. Right. I really appreciate it. And let's jump in it. I'm a little bit behind schedule here, so here we go. All right. What I did is I just threw some general questions out there. I know we ran through this early, but really, and this is for the whole panel. So where do you guys consider yourself? If you had to rate yourself from either being an adrenaline junkie, early adopter to someone kind of steadfast and needing the proven technology, where do you fit in? I'll start with you, Jim. Let's see if your microphone's working now. Nope. No, is it not working? What about you, Nick? Where do you fit in on this gamut?
Well, I'd say I'm definitely on the conservative end of things, Jim. And, the reason is I see my main mission is making wine, and making beer before that. And so refrigeration for me is in support of that goal. And I can't be spending all of my time, reinventing the refrigeration wheel, I guess, so to speak. Right. So, reliability is really important for me. And ease of use is really important. And so I'm certainly open to new technologies, of course, but I would say with a conservative eye, and I want to see things proven out before I would take the trouble and the time and the expense to integrate new things into our systems here.
Yeah, and I can remember even you and I having conversations like this where idea was approached, and we even agreed to proceed. But maybe we didn't put all the reliance on the new control, but we still took advantage of having the resource of it. We did some stuff with VFDs and some other stuff, I think, that was kind of on those lines. So yeah, no, I get that. What about you, Sam?
Yeah, I guess just kind of tagging on what Nick was saying, a lot of our equipments that we build nowadays is really specialized, but we still build more conventional equipment as well. But I think part of the technology side of us is that we are able to do a lot of diagnostics. We use a lot of PLC controllers, and we do a lot of diagnostics in-house here. And so we can help people that have a problem with a unit. And, when we call a service tech to go out and look at it, we can point that guy in the right direction. And then we can also validate whether or not his repair was valid, I guess. So there are some things there that, while refrigeration basically remains the same, some of the technology that we can use for diagnostics has been improving quite a bit.
I got that. Do we got you on audio yet, Jim? Yeah, perfect.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Cool.
Gotcha.
Yeah, the toggle wouldn't flip for me. We're probably considered a cautious early adopter here.
Yep.
I mean, like was said before, refrigeration technology hasn't changed a ton, but the controls have. And we looked at it as an opportunity to be able to troubleshoot from a distance. And like you were saying on the way into this, that last problem we had several technicians look at the machine locally and couldn't find it. And with your team's help, we were able to, remotely watch things and follow things and get enough eyes on stuff from a distance that we got our machine running again.
Yeah,
so
it was. Awesome. And we also have now identified, new processes that we didn't even know available. So that was a tough one. It was. I'm glad we're still watching it close, but yeah, I agree with you.
Hey, Jim, this is Brad. I have to ask you a question. If you had to, instead of being able to remotely troubleshoot that, if you had to put someone on airplanes to go visit that children, what would, even in the best of times without COVID-19, what would have been the cost to do that? I'm imagining to send a repair person out there in person from Pro Refrigeration, that's a $1,000, $2,000 cost. Is that correct?
Yeah, you're probably, by the time you get somebody here for 2 days and put them up, you're $2,500, $3,000.
Yeah. So the more we can do remotely, the better. It's a great cost avoidance story. It's fantastic.
Yeah, and we actually we had a technician. It was our brewery in North Carolina, and we had a technician up from the factory, and he couldn't figure it out. And it took several people in the plant, and all of us watching the diagnostics for a couple days to figure out where the issue was. And they actually brought in Bitzer, the compressor manufacturer, as well.
It was a weird deal, but it was and those are hair pulls. Those nuisance alarms. It was just but it was a serious issue. I'm glad we got to the bottom of it. And that's the other thing. I think Sam mentioned that too in his comment. That is, even though your technician level might not be, we have a lot of service partners around the country that might only work on our chiller system maybe once per month. They don't work on chillers every day too, so it does help us to be able to help them do their job. Well, that's good. Anybody else have any comments on it?
This is Brad. Obviously, I've always been a bit of an early adopter on this stuff, but one of the things I've learned in the last few years is start small and fail fast. And then if you do fail, figure out what you can learn from it, but don't over-index on it. But try the new stuff. Do it in a small. Don't risk everything. Do it small. Fail fast. Figure out what you learned and move forward. So, that's I think the lessons that I've learned through the years is don't go in too big. Don't over-index on it. Figure out what you want to do. Give it a try on a small scale. If it's successful, obviously move forward. If you're unsuccessful, don't worry about it. Figure out what you learned from that experience.
I think that's great advice. I agree with that. And you got to qualify the technology too. A simple question: how does this make my equipment work better? If it doesn't, it might be cute, it might be neat, but it's got to enhance the product or provide service. And sometimes people forget about it. So,
Yeah.
So, game changer. You guys remember or have in your past or over your career, remember any technology game changers? Something we talked at our rehearsal about the value in remote monitoring and kind of how that's almost become an expectation in today's day and age. But I don't know. What do you guys think? Any game changers come to mind for you? Let's start with you, Jim, since your microphone's.
I think this was number one. I mean, I've been in this industry 26 years now, and once we got to the point where we all had cell phones in our pockets and we could call a technician or call customer support from a piece of machinery, we could send pictures right away. I mean, that's been I think that was a great starting point for where technology's gone. And now that we've got remote access into control systems, it's just gotten better and better through the time.
That's cool. What about you, Nick?
Yeah, I agree with Jim completely. Honestly, the phones has been a big deal. For instance, if we're up on a machine and have some question about a valve that seems to be acting up, I can pull up the manual for that control valve on the spot. I'm laying underneath the tank, a bunch of pipes all over, and just literally go looking through the specs about what this voltage should be and what that should be, and that's huge. Instead of having to go back to the office, try to find the paperwork, back and forth. So I feel like having information at the fingertip like that has definitely made the process of maintenance just a heck of a lot easier. And then same thing with the remote monitoring. I would echo that for us to be able to watch machines in the middle of the night, and especially seeing temperatures, pressures, things like that, when we can't be there to be jotting down the notes has been extremely useful. So certainly the remote monitoring and alerts if something goes awry when we're at home or it's maybe Friday afternoon, no one's going to be in until Monday. If we are aware that, for instance, a chiller went down, that's just really important for us to know that so we can go and deal with it.
Cool.
Yeah, this is Brett. I think the next kind of pathway that I'm seeing, and I think in the industry it's getting really prevalent, is all the machine learning. So, being able to remotely connect in and stream that data in to an environment and then, figure out what you're learning from that data, doing predictive analytics against it and say, hey, the chiller's working great right now, but we think based on what we're seeing and based on similar, 1,000 or more similar metrics coming off that type of machine, we think it might be trending towards failure. And how do you get in front of that before you actually have something go wrong? Then if you do have to send people out, looking at the history of it and saying, well, we think based on what we know in the machine learning algorithms, this is probably the valve to your point. This is the part number, and this is the person we need to send that knows how to install that valve. So again, it comes down to remote monitoring is wonderful. The next phase of that is, hey, how can we predict what's going to fail and how do we get in front of it before it actually does fail?
Yeah. That's where we're going. And now you remind me of that airplane ride we were on. You get me all pumped up again. So we're, and it's a never end, and I've been preaching this and I almost feel guilty because poor Jim's been at Oscar Blues, has been listening to all this information for years, and it slowly trickles out a little by little, but we are getting there, I promise. It might not look like it on the surface. Any other comments do you guys have on game changing or technologies? All these things that I put on here, of course, remote monitoring is good. Production quality and control. I know that's areas that our team utilizes the technology for tracking. The trending and scheduling tools that goes into, Brett mentioned the smart learning and machine learning. There's a tremendous amount of that which is strictly just data. All they're doing is analyzing data. And then I'm always amazed at how much predictive analysis we can do with knowledge. We know when the temperature of our liquid refrigerant line is more than 30 degrees, the temperature difference is higher than 30 degrees from ambient, that we've got a fouled coil, and utilizing data like that to increase serviceability. And that's what excites me also. it's exciting stuff. So, all right. I put machine and motor controls on here. I know that it's the public utilities that are really driving a lot of this technology. Are you still seeing that, Brett, in the world as the municipality?
Yeah, the municipalities, absolutely. I mean, not only just in the United States, but abroad as well. I mean, the energy grid is so critical and important that they're constantly, IoT enabling their grids and looking at potential things that could lead to a failure. So they're leading a lot of this. But then manufacturing is coming on very, very strong as well. And you're seeing more and more of this stuff coming into the automotive space. I mean, the cars you buy now, almost all of them have some sort of connectivity in. And it's so that they can do these predictive analytics against and figure out how the automobile is being utilized. So yeah, I would say utilities, automotive, manufacturing are all really prominent.
Great. Hey, this slide here doesn't mean we're done. We've got another 20 minutes or 15 minutes to talk, and then some Q&A. But it's just a reminder that Nick and I are off camera, and you can post any questions on the side. And I'm also supposed to remind you now and at the end of the conference that you can also register for one-on-one meetings from the BrewCon. So anyway, please do all that. How you guys doing so far? Nobody's drinking beer. That's what I should have made sure we were all doing. You're on the East Coast.
I'm from Montana. Beer's never considered drinking. That's not drinking where I'm from.
So this is I was wondering if you guys had any stories about times, and I changed the wording a little bit here than when we talk, but kind of like, hey, it's worth a shot. Let's give it a try. Or, hey, we better cut bait and run moment that came from adapting technology. And are there any situations that you guys can remember or think of in this kind of frame of mind? How about you, Jim?
The worth a shot thing. I mean, that goes back to, I can think maybe 3 years ago, I got a call I called you for something. And much like a kid, right after he gets a bike for Christmas, you told me about this guy you met on an airplane and all the cool ideas you guys had and all this technology and how we'd be able to watch our machines better than we had in the past. And it's definitely been worth a shot, and I'm glad we gave it a try.
I didn't pay you for that too. This is well, and I had a note here, and this isn't sucking up, although it kind of is. But man, I mean, really, the group that I have here, you guys have all, been instrumental, I guess, in Pro, either inspiring us, Jim sometimes mandating or heavily pressuring us to do stuff, but it was all because of that. I think where we are today, which I think is a good place. Not that we're there, not that we're even close to being where we need to be, but we are where we are. So anyway, that was a little. I have that note here. So let me ask this: where do you guys find out about new technology? Do you guys? Is it found in industry? I don't know. Any of you? Where do you hear about the newest stuff? And even outside of cooling, obviously, maybe mostly cooling, Jim. You hear a lot of that from me. But what about in the cellar and in other aspects of the brewery?
A lot of it, we get networking with other brewers, other people in the industry. Talking to friends, some off the internet, some out of magazines. As archaic as those sound anymore. That's
true. What about other industries? I know as you probably when you first got started, you couldn't just go to the supplier directory at the Brewers Association because there was probably 6 people there. Now you're so. Do you still do that? Do you still go outside the industry to find technologies and?
A little bit. I've got some friends in the meat industry, the cannabis industry. Some in dairy, so I get some crossover there.
Yeah, and same with me. I think definitely crossing industries has been a useful way on my end. Certainly between wine and beer, there's often very different things that exist in those two worlds that can make sense to cross over. And then same thing with other types of food processing with pharmaceuticals even. Certainly from the monitoring and sensor standpoint, there's a lot of things there that maybe haven't found their way into wine or beer yet.
Yeah, Nick, you're famous for that. You're for definitely for sharing stuff. Look what I found, and that wasn't designed for it, but applying it, that's kind of cool.
Mm. And then back to the what's the worth a shot? Let's give it a try with that idea. Just a little idea on that note. Something that we've done actually with your chiller specifically is that we have a bypass for technology. So one example, the load pump that's sending glycol into the cellar. Off the bat, we thought we want that on a VFD for all the reasons that VFDs can be really useful. However, I didn't want the entire facility dependent on a flimsy little sensor for pressure or potentially the VFD itself. And so we actually have a bypass switch to just line wire that pump. And so for us, if any of that technology goes down, whether it's a sensor or the VFD or whatever, we just turn over to just send 480 to the pump and let it run. And we've used that probably 2 or 3 times in the last 10 years. And I tell you, when we did, we were pretty glad we had it. So we could stay online. So I like just an example of, I like technology when it's working well, but if it's not, I like to have a backup plan for how to keep things going.
That's right. That's a great example. No, I agree. I hear you. Cool. We got a question here from, let's answer Rick Tufts. He's a longtime customer. He is saying, I currently run my chill and flow at 26 bricks. Is there a benefit to going lower to harm the unit or increasing my density? It only has a 5-gallon reservoir. You're not going to benefit by the system by going any stronger than the normal concentration. Because the glycol doesn't enhance cooling. If anything, it inhibits it, and as it prevents freezing. So sorry, Rick. Yeah, it won't make it any strong. It won't give you any more capacity. So I hope that answers the question. Sorry, I'm trying to touch screen it. And then we got one from Andre. Curious what chilling ideas are available that minimize carbon emissions. I'm going to be based in an Italian mountains climate that has really cold tap water. Electricity is very expensive and natural gas comes from Russia. So sounds like a question for you, Sam.
Yeah, it might be CO2. I mean, if you're really looking at carbon emissions and you've got, the ability to stay subcritical, CO2 might be an answer there.
Cool. Which is probably what would be offered in Italy too. It's a lot more common, or probably, yeah. Right. And you got the cooler climate to make it work. Cool. Cool. I got another question here saying, is it beneficial to increase glycol capacity by adding an additional tank? At points, is there a trade-off between spending too much on the extra glycol? Yes. My philosophy is size your chiller for the cooling load. Use the glycol reservoir to just kind of give you a larger flywheel, but not to give you extra capacity during peak times, because most times what you find is you're going to end up getting behind the 8 ball quicker. So what I would, and we could run you through the scenarios. Actually, there's a presentation tomorrow, I think at this same time, that Damon is putting on expansion. So this would be a great question for that one too. And I will make sure that gets asked if you don't make that one. So I hope that helps. Cool. All right, guys, how you doing? Anything else on give it a shot or cut bait and run? Anything like that? Let's see what our, this is my favorite picture of the presentation. This is on an article titled "The 25 Worst Patents or something, or 25 worst inventions. And this was a patent for a blizzard guard. I thought it kind of reminded me of the COVID flu masks. So anyway, so panelists, you are given the opportunity to invent. Oh, I just had a question jump up here. So I am in the process of setting up my glycol header loop. Using the information I received from Pro, it looks like I could either go, you know what, I will, is there better if it's to go with 1.5 or 2 inch? What do you think, Jim?
How big are your tanks would be my first question. I mean, if you've got larger tanks, you want the larger diameter or the larger diameter headers. But if you have small tanks, say under probably 60 barrels, maybe 80 barrels, that 1.5 inches should be good.
Cool. Yeah, and it's always one thing to remember too when you're trying to decide if you are kind of on the fence, you've done those calculations, the labor is going to be the same whether you're doing 2 inch or 1.5 inches, and that's going to be one of your biggest costs. Even if you're providing the labor yourself, doing it yourself, your time is still. Don't forget to put the value on that. So, and I always the larger. It's pretty hard to ever oversize pipe to the point where it's going to be detrimental. At least when it comes to glycol pipe, which are in breweries, which are low pressure systems relatively. You guys agree on that? It's just the added cost of the pipe that you fight.
And it's a lot cheaper to spend a little bit extra the first time than it is to go back and upsize.
Absolutely. Second that.
Cool. Are you so any other, where would you guys, if you had to look at one area of your life where you wish you had a solution, is there anything, when I kind of considered how I would answer this question, I'll just throw it out there. To me, it was, of course, communication. That's been my biggest challenge the past 3 weeks. Jim, I can't imagine having the 7 facilities. Has your job changed, or has it been pretty much I know you've got additional challenges, but from a communication standpoint, have the last 3 weeks been different to you?
It's actually been awesome because right when this started, I think it was March 11th was the day that Trump threw in the international travel ban. Our IT guy had just signed us up or got us all online with Microsoft Teams, and being able to, communicate that way through this has been awesome.
That was going to be one of my poll questions too. Are you Teams, GoToMeeting, Zoom? What's our preference? Current preference for conferencing right now?
For us, it's Teams because it's our system. I actually we did my granddaughter's first birthday party on Saturday over Zoom, and it seemed like a cool platform as well.
Oh, cool. What are you guys using, Brett, for the video conferencing?
Yeah, we use Teams, and we also use Zoom for internal meetings. It's Zoom for customer facing. We're using Teams.
Gotcha. Sam, does your company have a standard?
No, we're pretty localized here, Jim. So we don't have guys spread out all over the place. So other than you guys, what you're working on for us up in Seattle, but Damon will just send me a video or something. So I'm probably a little behind the curve on that.
We've had you at a few go-to meetings. I've always had go-to meetings.
Yeah.
I've been pretty frustrated. It looks like Zoom's a pretty good option though. Cool. Well, I don't know. Anything else, guys? Anything you can think of, or any questions from the audience? Is anyone still there? Hey, Mary. Mary's our inside sales manager. Oh, I need to remind everyone that we do have the one-on-ones that can be scheduled. So please register those. And this is that awkward silence that we've created. Well, I got a list of questions here that I can go back and ask. This is kind of a good one. And I'll ask this mostly to Nick and to Jim, but also to Sam. You might be relative to this. How often do you guys buy a piece of equipment and then go back to the manufacturer with recommendations?
I think you should answer that, Jim. How many times have I called you?
I was going to have when I actually wrote it out, if I was on camera, I would show you. I said, except for Pro, because I knew that was something that I do and have done to you both. But, I mean, do you do it in other industries, or is it just mostly?
Oh yeah. We try to when we have a new piece of equipment and we learn about it and see how it can make our lives better or someone else's, we definitely bring that back up with the manufacturer.
If they earn it, huh?
Yeah, we see it in filling, in cooling, brew houses, all the way around. Automation.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah, and likewise, I'd say certainly 8 times out of 10 at least there's some kind of feedback like that ends up coming up. But I think it's such a useful exchange when you can get the designers and the engineers actually out into the cellar when that's possible. When you're actually producing, making wine or brewing beer, and walk through the process in real life, not just in the shop or on paper, but get in the cellar and see how things are working. And I think, to me, a lot of the really interesting innovations and solutions and changes in systems have come about that way, when you bring the technical guys to the guys on the ground and talk about how something's working or not.
Absolutely. I can recall, even with your project, it wasn't until after we'd actually sold the project that I was even introduced to you. So we kind of came around from after giving you a product, and then we did the process in the wrong order, which we learned. But I agree. There's no replacement for in-person meetings, especially in that capacity, I think.
Yeah, certainly for me with all.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, just to reiterate that in-person meeting thing, I think to try to describe a problem or a behavior of a machine over a telephone is certainly, it's possible, but so much easier if you do have the option for that in-person meeting and listen to how things are sounding, looking at how it's working. It's just, there's a lot of nuance there that you can only really pick up in person.
Yep.
Yeah, and I was just going to comment, sometimes we find that, people kind of overshoot what they really need. And, they'll say, well, we want to be able to cool this bread down in 20 minutes from 80 to minus 20. Then you get to talking to them. They really only need to go from 80 to 30 above in an hour. Well, that's a big difference in the system that we're designing. So having that face-to-face conversation where we really kind of, okay, what do you really need? And then we can explain the cost difference that you're talking about with that equipment, and come with a practical piece of equipment that really does the job that they actually need to do. So that's where that getting together face to face, I think, helps a lot.
Exactly, and we're having to learn to do that virtually, and I think that's why, I don't know what your guys' opinion are. We used to, prior to this, we always did either the conference calls, but maybe one or two of us would have our cameras on. I almost require the cameras to be on, at least in my depending on the message of the meeting, and I just have, I don't know. It's nice to be able to read people's. It's driving me nuts to not be on to not try and just to communicate with words. I hope it's come across, but I really like the value in seeing the people, and it's proved effective, I think, in our organization. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I agree. Seeing the process and the actual being able to, picture's worth 1,000 words, that's what they say, I guess so.
We love Teams too. I've been doing more and more with Teams. That is just the whole operating out of the cloud has been a transition, but I'm glad we started it 6 months ago or last year, instead of adapting it now. It like you, Jim, I've been from an impact on a technology standpoint, it hasn't been bad at all. I think there's areas there's a lot of processes we've actually improved, I think, because of this. And it'll change how we operate going forward.
Yeah, as we come out of this situation, it's going to be interesting to see how businesses change all across the world.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Cool. Well, I don't know if you guys want to continue to talk, or if we just cut this short. But I appreciate it. I've gone through most of my stuff. Is there anything you guys had thought of, or maybe wanted to bring up, or have anything to comment about?
Well, I think it's interesting. It looks like the program here has done a little poll with everybody in terms of the audience.
Oh yeah,
Early adopters, cautious. I think it's pretty interesting to see that the vast majority of people would consider themselves cautious when it comes to technology, at least I'm assuming with regards to cooling. As a manufacturer, Jim, what do you think about that, and how does that size up against your expectation and understanding? Certainly for me, like we've talked about a lot, reliability is number one for me. And
absolutely. Yeah.
Efficiency is very important, but it's number two for me. Certainly reliability, absolutely number one. Things need to work when we're making wine or making beer. If it's not working, then it's not working. So anyhow.
Right. And when we started, I tell you, the last thing the last objective we had was to build an efficient system. When we started building systems for breweries, we just needed systems that would operate reliably. It was such a new application. Now it doesn't seem as hard as it did at the time, but I mean, we were chilling fluid to 25 degrees. It wasn't as common as it is today. And yeah, we definitely didn't have any influence on efficiency, but that's changing. And that was what I said. The comment to Sam is how our industry, it's just amazing how hard we work to just change the playing field and change the dynamics of the industry. Every 5 years, essentially, or at least every decade, there is a major change in the refrigeration industry that almost forces you to start from scratch. And unfortunately, it's consumers like you guys that end up paying the bill. But I don't know, it's just interesting. But my opinion of being cautious is absolutely you have to. It's if it doesn't bring value, and if we don't have backup, that's what I'm all about. If I'm not going to put it all in one sensor. We've done that in the past. We've learned it's always better to have two sensors, right, Jim?
Yep.
Well, is there anything else? I think that's it, guys. I appreciate.
Thanks for having us, Jim.
Yeah.
Thanks,
I
Jim.
don't know, or do we have questions
Thanks,
coming
Jim.
in? I guess all I see is a poll result. I'm sorry if I had questions. No. All right. Well, if there's no questions, I appreciate it. And I will talk to all you guys soon. Make sure you give me your addresses too.
Thanks,
All right.
Jim.
Everybody.
Thank
All right.
Take care, guys.
Thanks, guys.
See you guys.
Hope you